With the Liga season already begun, a 5-0 win, that's all the good stuff. But with those 5 headlines, I haven't really been talking too much about all the transfer buzz stuff. Sure, Rodri, sure, a little bit of Balde for the last one. But to really get into the weeds of all the nonsense, which probably is going to change by the time this recording hits the air, I needed help from an old friend, and that is Levon, a.k.a. Barcelona. Levon, you're there. You're on the ground. How's it going there in Catalonia?
What up? All good, all good. Sun is shining. Season started with a full manita, so very good. How are you?
Yeah, as good as you can be again when the season starts, and I'm trying to figure out from day to day, do I record? What do I talk about? What do we go over? Well, fortunately, with the transfer window just 1 week left, there is a lot to talk about, and we're going to start with something that's kind of straightforward, so nothing really to add here other than Dominik Livakovic, Livakovic. There we go. We got it. Livakovic. For those who always correct my pronunciation, I got on the final attempt. But anyway, Barca will pay a fixed €2 million fee plus up to $500,000 in add-ons for the Croatian goalkeeper. Several options do remain on the table for him to stay this season, though a loan move has not been ruled out. I had seen reports for a while that he was going to be loaned out at 31 years old and then return when Tech's contract runs out. But it also seems like potentially based on salary, and we'll get to the number 9 part of this. If Barcelona do not add another big salary to their wage bill, they will likely be able to just fit him in there and then say, Tech, we do love you. We love your vibes, but you're going to be the third goalkeeper this season, and he's going to just slot in as the second goalkeeper. All of those different permutations make sense to me.
Yeah, I've been following this kid since he was 13 years old, and no, just kidding. None of us really know this guy. He comes with a good rep, which we found out about when his name popped up. So I can't really have an opinion one way or the other. Supposedly the initial idea was to loan him back to the club they were signing him from for 1 year, which made sense to me. Now, word on the street is he might be our second goalkeeper. Um, that's up to the club to decide. Maybe they want to watch him train for a couple of weeks before they make that decision. I have no idea, but he's welcome. Bienvenido, benvingut. And yeah, I think either way it is smart. If we don't think that we have a good backup option in the Masia, then he could be a good pickup. And if especially if Flick decides to maybe like Pep and Lucho used to do, play the second goalkeeper during the Copa del Rey at least, then we can see what he's made of. Um, Obviously, John Garcia. I mean, people talk about every player in our opening league match, but they don't say how absolutely awesome John Garcia was. He intercepted every ball. He stopped a one-on-one. Um, let's just hope John Garcia does not get injured, and we don't need a second goalkeeper.
Yeah, in the last, I'd say, 6, 7 years, we have kind of been talking about the drop off, and more particularly like the post pandemic era. We talked about the drop off from starter to bench option for Barcelona. And that is the position, again, where you see from Juan Garcia to Tech in the preseason, at least, the biggest chasm. There is where Tech is now in his career. There was certainly just a different way that he defends, as in not as well in his box, and you can see the speed. And sure, he still has all that experience, all that wherewithal, but upgrading at that position for 2 mil plus potential point 0.5 add-ons. That's just a piece of good business as a backup goalkeeper, especially when, as is going to be the case here in our conversation today, Barcelona will not be in the 1-to-1 next summer. So getting this deal done early is something we don't really see a lot because they haven't been in the financial position to do that in recent years. So yeah, it's just a good little piece of business. Whether we've seen him or not, him being a back goalkeeper, the only other thing it does indicate to me that we saw that Aaron Yakashvili was sold with a low buyback to Almeria. So clearly he was given a run out in the preseason. Hansi Flick didn't trust him to be the backup. And Diego Kochen is on loan to a club in Denmark. So we will see how his season goes about. And if both those guys are still very young, but even at 21, at that point, I mean, again, that's still often young. Remember, Inaki Pena didn't really get his chance until he was like 24ish years old, right? He was 24, 25 even before he really got to break through. So we'll
Right.
see what happens with those two in the future. But for now, getting a backup goalkeeper makes sense to me. Okay, that was easy. Now comes the hard stuff. Alejandro Balde. Let's just run through the timeline real quick here to where we are today. It began with Jorge Mendes, his agent, which is an agent that will also come up in our conversations later. We have an update on Mark Costello as well. He meets Deco. They begin to discuss Balde's future. And after that point, Flick openly gives the option, it sounds like, for Balde. He says, no, I'm not forcing Balde out the door, but I do want to give him some time. So he does not have him for Elche. So he says this after the fact, by the way. He also says something in the presser beforehand too, just
Yeah,
about leaving
before.
Balde out of the before. Yeah, right. It was the before presser. Leaves him out of the squad for Elche to have him clear his head, and saying he was not 100%. And so after the match, then clarifies that he did not tell the player to leave. That Flick did not tell Balde to leave. He felt the player was not fully focused. So that is kind of the clear cut 100% that is coming from the club because it's coming right from Flick. The things around the periphery that we've heard is that Manchester United were in on him, but they want him on a loan, and Barcelona are only willing to sell him, and they don't even want to buy back. That's what's been reported. Which again, for a player so young that is 22, turning 23 in October, seems pretty incredible. There are conflicting reports, as there will be, coming from Catalan journalists today about Balde has said that he has some doubts now about his future. Balde has also said that he's completely not convinced by any of the options he has, so he's trying to stay and convince Flick. So again, we're seeing conflicting reports as expected there about Alejandro Balde. So walk me through, Levon, how you felt when you saw this first reported, and kind of where you think the club should go from here at this point.
Right. So, I mean, you skipped the first press conference, right? Because in the first press conference, Flick was asked about Balde, and he said something like, "Hey, everybody who is here absolutely needs to show the desire to fight for their place." And I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically insinuated that whatever it is, and it might not be that he does not work hard enough, but he does not show that desire, and he does not have that mental edge that Flick is looking for when players are competing for their spot. Now, you'd think that a young player who is at least physically extremely gifted, we can discuss the talent level because his football IQ has never been great, but he is incredibly fast, and there is nobody quite like him when it comes to breaking lines when dribbling out of the back in world football. So he has some very specific attributes going for him. You think that if a guy like that loses his starting spot, does not go to the World Cup, has the whole summer to rest, or at least rest mentally, do you think he'd be the hungriest guy in the squad come preseason? So for Flick to actually call him out during the pregame presser with 10 days left in the transfer window is just incredible. I mean, it's incredible. Also, if the club is thinking about selling him, then Flick just dropped 30% off the price easily. Because don't think that potential buyers don't look at the mental aspect of their transfer targets. So if all of, and that is something that the seller will never tell you, well, this guy's not working hard during training, because you'd be beyond stupid to say that. So for Flick to say it in public, it's like, oh, okay. And then if right before the match he said, well, I didn't call him up in the squad because to be honest with you, he wasn't 100%. Yeah, that's because they're trying to pick him off the asphalt because Flick just threw him under the bus 24 hours earlier. Of course he's not 100%. So that my thought is both Flick is handling this poorly because it makes no sense. It makes no sense. If you want to sell the guy, then don't say this at all. So my sense is that we don't really want to sell him, and we're just giving him a huge kick in the ass so that he gets his ish together, you know?
Yeah,
Because if Balde competes, then he can become a force. And I think a lot of people um, are mistaken when they look at footballers because they say, oh, he's fast and he's got a decent technique and all of the other stuff, the positioning or the football IQ, they're going to learn that. As if that's not part of talent to begin with. As if talent is only physical or technical. No, it's not as if somebody all of a sudden becomes a lot smarter footballer. But there's definitely room for improvement if you work on it. And with his speed and his ability to break the lines, and he has a decent technique, like there's a foundation for a top left back. I mean, 2 seasons ago he was one of the better left backs in the world. So yeah, I'm of two minds here. One, I don't think the club is handling this very intelligently, but more than that, I think it is a tremendous shame that a kid like Balde, who's from Barcelona, he's culé, he wants to be at the club, seemingly, and I'm not blaming him, he just doesn't have that dog in him to fight for his spot and to improve. So I'm not sure where it's going to go from here. Like, is his personality going to change? Is his desire and his hunger going to change? Maybe, but even then, if it changes, imagine he has an amazing season. Then you're in the last year of his contract. Are you going to give him a huge contract, knowing already like while already having doubts on whether he will always give his 100%? So yeah, it's very difficult to gauge. And I think that even not just from the outside, I can imagine even people in the club don't quite know what to do here.
yeah, that's all. Especially that last year the contract thing is something really interesting that I didn't really consider here, especially when we're talking about his potential. How much they're likely selling him for, right? Like when I had said 30 to 40 million, that feels low, obviously, with the fullback market as it does. And I'm adding Jules Kounde into this here for a second because the latest update on him, Kounde has been told that Eric Garcia is the first choice right back and that his option is to return as a backup center back option. And yeah, potentially, obviously, backing up the right back spot too. So Barcelona, it sounds like, is going to field some offers for him. And if something suitable comes in for him, which I would say should be around 70, but it might not be at this point in the market, right? If Barcelona, again, they've already kind of played their hand now. He's the backup. So we're looking to sell him. The weird thing I think about both of these situations, both Balde and Kounde, is that yes, there was a World Cup, and yes, Kounde was at the World Cup, but I guess that again, Barcelona has felt like we'll get to the 9 7 in a second, but it felt like they've fleshed out their squad, like they've done their business in the transfer window nice and early, like they were looking at a left back, center back option, which right now we know the name. The name is Castello Luqueba from RB Leipzig. That is the name that has been now linked. Hansi Flick apparently has given the yes. He can also play it left center back or left back. So
We
that
think
makes
we know the
sense.
name.
But for him to come, if we know the name, you said, yeah, that's true.
No,
But
we think.
we think we know the name, sure. It also is like RB Leipzig could also. I just saw one time that his release clause is 80 mil, and they might ask somewhere near there, which tells me that's not going to happen then. So just that's done and dusted. But anyway, that would be the name if we've seen if Kounde or if Balde are sold, then that would be one of the names that we've seen reported. We've also seen the name Gonzalo Ignacio from Sporting CP. So yes, there are names that have been thrown out there who can play both at left center back and at left back. We'll cross those bridges when we have to get there. But I said, to your point, it feels like weird timing because it's not like this is like the middle of July or the end of the World Cup where both of these players have, ideas that Hansi Flick might have. Hansi Flick wanted to go through preseason, saw these guys in preseason, was not satisfied with what he saw, and now has kind of made that decision on these guys. And that is really difficult then for the club because, as you said, now you've got a week left in the transfer window to not only ship them out but potentially do the negotiations. So I think when you say about the way Hansi Flick and the sporting department, it has felt like he and Deco are very aligned this summer. When you talk about Anthony Gordon, you talk about Adeyemi, it seems like both Deco and Flick have been aligned with the sporting project. But as you said, it kind of harpoons Barcelona's leverage and negotiating power here with the week out because of the way that Flick is being, very honest and very forward about it. But the club is also, kind of showing their hand and saying, all right, yeah, these are the players we're trying to offload. Do you want to buy them? And that's, again, you're giving up leverage and negotiating power on it. And one thing I will say, though, from a sporting aspect, like we're talking about the off the field stuff and the financial parts, but the sporting aspect is Xavi Espart this preseason in midfield, sure, but at right back and even at left back has kind of showed this breakthrough. And we were talking about the mental aspect of it. Xavi Espart's mental aspect, it seems like, are things that can't be taught. He, whether it's the through balls, the passing, the ball playing, like for just 19 years old, remember he is the same generation as Bernal and Kubarsi and Lamine Yamal. And for him to, when I say that he's he's not even a late bloomer, he just didn't come up at the same time that those guys did. But it seems like he is a talent. I thought he would be a B plus talent. That's kind of where I had him. When I saw him in the midfield, I saw him at the U16 level. I saw him at the U19 level, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of a Mark Costello type. Not in terms of player profile; they are very different. But I thought that best case scenario, we're going to see him. And I say this is best case scenario, like even last season for Barça Athletic, I was like, okay, that is a Sergio Roberto type player because he is. He can play in the midfield. He can play at right back. He just has a very good sense about him in between the ears. And athletically, like we know, athletically, it's not, it's not 100%. But it seems like Hansi Flick is saying for what he can't give me athletically, Eric Garcia as well, he more than makes up for it with what is between the ears. And when you have players that are athletes in front of him, like Anthony Gordon, like Adeyemi, and I would even put, I would obviously put Rafinha there, but even a guy like Fermin, right? When you have those guys in front of the back line and are pressing, you need players that are smart in rest defense more than you need just guys that are going to run and run and run and run, right? You need a balance. And he's another one of those defending options that definitely brings balance to this team. So I do think that as scary the financial parts of Kounde and Balde are, that Xavi Espart's breakthrough might be very real. That we have to take very seriously in how much that how much Hansi Flick is going to trust him in the absence of those guys. Like the fact that Xavi Espart played at left back in the opener against Elche, which again to me was a surprise. I was like, okay, how are they going to line up? Is it Gerard Martin moving back to left back? Eric Garcia will play right back with Andres Christensen, and then Xavi Espart will play on right back. And Hansi Flick said, no, actually, I trust him completely at left back, and the other three are going to be where I want to see them this season, and let's go forward from there. And then he is Christensen, Gerard Martin, Eric Garcia, they were all good. Obviously, it's a clean sheet. There was very few moments where things even looked shaky for Barcelona in that match. But the fact that Espart arguably had the best match of all four of them on the back line, I think tells you where Hansi Flick sees him now in the depth chart too, which again is pretty shocking and amazing that you might have four players from that 07 generation being as high caliber players as it can be.
Incredible, right? And I haven't followed Xavi Espart that much during his younger career, but I do know people who watch Barca Athletic and who watch the youth teams, and they're saying that he never looked like a sure thing to break through to the first team. He never really stood out when he was
Yeah,
younger.
no.
And so I don't know. All of a sudden, he's going from Xavi Asparagus to Xavi Aspartacus. So good for him. Let let's hope he keeps it up. I mean, you never know how this goes, because it's one thing to impress during a couple of matches. It's another thing to do it over the course of a season, and quite another to do it over the course of a career. I mean, we have Balde. as an example. We have Casado as an example as well. So we don't know, but wish the kid well. I think it's very interesting that when Flick arrived, everybody was already talking about the High Line, and the first thing we said was like, oh, Araujo is going to be incredibly important because he's the only one that we have with the speed to correct the gaps in the defense on our High Line. Araujo out. Then we have Balde, and Balde is even faster than Araujo, and he also has that speed to correct gaps in the back line. And now Balde is on the brink, at least. And already Balde lost his starting spot to Cancelo, who never was the fastest, but less so now that he's getting older. So yeah, there is that balance where we have a lot of speed up front now. In the midfield, you don't need it as much. Um, but I would like to see at least one or two fast players in the squad, or one or two fast defenders in the squad to balance it out. Now, if we don't sign anybody, I think Deco and Flick have more than earned our trust. Also, I think Eric is faster than people give him credit for, but he does not have that blistering speed. That it's nice to have at least one defender who runs like a cheetah, right? So it's a bit surprising, but hey, let's see. I mean, I was also surprised that we didn't sign a nine, who I thought would be our priority. And between Rashford, Lewandowski, and Ferran Torres, I think we lost 60 goals, and we opened the season scoring 5. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a perfect transition to the fact that it does seem like the club, we've known this, but now it's pretty much been confirmed. Julian Alvarez for Atletico Madrid. I'm going to let you be the one to get aggregated. It's funny because with the different matchups against Atletico Madrid last season, I've talked to quite often, and I'm following on social media a bunch of Atletico Madrid accounts, right? And it's I'm going to again let you talk about the dramatic part of it better because I think you've done such a great job on social media. Barcelona is always great to follow because it does seem like the club is just not say waiting on Julian Alvarez, but they're saying, hey, if not him, we're going to survive. Now, Tresoldi is one from Club Brugge that has been heavily linked. We've seen some other players heavily linked, but it does feel like the club is going to say Rafinha at the 9 is better than any of those other options. And you know what? If he's healthy, it might be right. I said this for the 5 headlines against Elche. Now that you've brought in Gordon, you've brought in Adeyemi, you do have Lamine Yamal. Hopefully he continues to be healthy. And as Lamine Yamal does, I'm not going to cast any judgment until like January, February. Like I'm not worried about him at all in any way. He's coming off a summer as well. Then Dani Olmo as well. We've seen him in the past play false 9. And if you need to break glass case of emergency on that, you can also do that because Fermin is such a menace. We also saw in that second half, and Olmo did come on, that Fermin and Dani Olmo getting this idea in our head that you have to have this in the box number 9 like this. If you're playing transition football the way that Barcelona is now playing, right? I think it's so counterintuitive the way that we think that the Blaugrana are going to play. If you're going to play like that, that box presence isn't as necessary. You just need someone to be in the box, to be making runs into the box. And Rafinha is willing to do that. Gordon is willing to do that. Fermin is willing to do that. Like those runs are happening because you can never tell me that Ferran Torres, and Flick actually said this too, which is funny, that Flick is also aware of this, that Ferran Torres was not this hold up number 9 in any way. He just made runs. And so between Fermin, Rafinha, Adeyemi, and Gordon, you're like, those runs are going to come. And with Hamza Abdelkarim, if you truly need a player against that low block, it seems like he's going to be sticking around in the first team and is going to have the opportunity to kind of fight for the option of, okay, we're against a low block. It hasn't really been working for 60 minutes. Let's throw him on the last 30 minutes. Get your back to goal, kid. Win those headers in the box, which he does. Like he showed in the preseason, he does win stuff in the box. He does, he's tall, he knows how to use his body, and he knows how to be a poacher. So there is something there, and you also don't want to, he showed enough that you don't want to completely limit his time. So the argument to me that Barcelona will not go for another striker if Julian Alvarez doesn't come, that makes a lot of sense to me. Now, what I need you to do is the hard part here, Levon, and speak to the recent, I wouldn't even call it developments, because nothing has changed. Atletico Madrid have dug in and said, we are not selling him, especially to Barcelona. Well, we are selling him if Arsenal if Arsenal wants to come for him and he agrees to go to Arsenal. We actually will do that, but we are not selling him to Barcelona. They put yeah, go ahead. You figure this out.
Yeah, no, it's a shame because I'm not in Catalonia right now, so I can't read the mood as well as usual, just from speaking to people around me. But there's so many aspects to this, right? And this is not like something that we can summarize in 1 minute. I think one of the things is that it goes way back, and honestly, if I don't put on my blinders as a fan of my club, as a member of my club, you know, we are almost public enemy number one in Spain, and this is because, first of all, most clubs don't have any money. We are one of the few who does. And then when we go broke, we break out the palancas and sign 150, 160 million worth of players. And then without the palancas, we still spend 60 million on a player. And for us, it's like, oh, it's only one player of 60 million, but that's a lot more than other clubs can sign. Leaving aside Atleti right now, it's not a direct comparison. And then, do we
Well,
register them?
yeah,
Do we
wait,
not
let me
register
jump in there.
them?
I want to remind everybody at this point in the transfer, as we're recording this today, I mean, if I gave you 30 guesses to guess outside of the big three, who is we'll say the highest marketed transfer signing into the Liga this season, this summer, it is Facundo Bernal of Real Betis. It is Facundo Bernal, a player that I know most people have not heard of. And outside of the big three, he is the biggest signing in the Liga this summer, which is, yeah, unbelievable. So just to
And
back up
how
your
much did they
point,
sign him for?
was it 12
Yeah,
or
I heard it was 10. I heard it was 10.
10?
So for one, there's all this pent up frustration that, even when our club was mismanaged horribly, we still get away with it because we're literally too big to fail. Now, I know we can defend this. We can point at how much money we have coming in. We can point out how, yeah, we took the risk of the palancas because we knew that it would help us build our team and attract sponsors. But that does not take the taste out of people's mouths, right? When they see us in shambles and John Laporta comes in and boom, turns everything turns everything around in your face. Um, and then on top of that, you have Negreira, which, if any other club, imagine how we would feel if Madrid paid 7 million to Negreira for 17 years. It's no matter how you look at it, it's a scandal of the highest order. So this is all happening and happening and happening. And in the meantime, they are used to us not having any money. And then we go for Julian Alvarez. So I understand the frustration. I understand the disgust. Um, Having said that, Atleti signs players of Villarreal, which theoretically is their closest competitor right below them. The way that Atleti is always hovering right below us. Actually, Atleti is doing a bit better compared to Villarreal in that Atleti beat us in Europe and they beat us in the Copa, right? So of course they're upset that we want to sign Julian Alvarez. But there is some hypocrisy there because they signed players from Villarreal. Um, what was it, 6 or 7 years ago? They signed Diego Costa back from Chelsea. Diego Costa did not refuse to train for Chelsea in order to engineer his move back to Madrid. And basically all we did was we contacted the player, like every club does, because nobody makes a transfer without talking to the players camp first, feeling them out. Do you want to come? If so, what are your salary expectations roughly? Is there a deal there? Every club works all of that out before they actually tell the other club, hey, we're going to talk to that player, or before they make a bid. Because if not, there wouldn't be any transfers. So we do what every club did. We reached out to Julian. Hey, you interested? We would like to have you on our team. Julian, who was wearing Barça jerseys when he was 6 years old, of course would like to come. And Atleti blame us for it. But it's not our fault if they can't keep their star player happy. Just like it was not Paris Saint-Germain's fault when we could not keep Neymar happy. Or Dro, for that matter. We didn't want to lose those players. So then Atleti plays this whole game of, we send them an offer, they lie about even receiving the offer. They go on social media and belittle the offer. Um, they supposedly promised Alvarez they would let him go, and then they're not letting him go. Then Alvarez comes back from vacation. Simeone goes to Ibiza for 2 days. Gil Marin is nowhere to be found when Alvarez wants to sit down and actually discuss the matter. It seems to me that Atleti should have gone to Julian, told Julian, look, we know you want to leave. We did talk about this half a year ago, and we said we would cooperate with you. We cannot transfer you to Barcelona right now because there's too much hatred between the fans. There's too much rivalry right now. Um, the only way we could let you go is to Barcelona is if we got an insane bid of 200 million, whatever. However, please stay 1 more year, and then if you want to go to Barcelona, we'll let you go. If you want to go now, choose another club. No, but instead they play this whole game in the media, like when he makes the comments during the World Cup, they say, "Oh, how dare he say that? How dare he soil Messi's victory?" It's ridiculous. It's not Atletico's place to comment on whether he should say it after Argentina won a match or not. Um, they refuse to meet with him. Then this whole absurd action of um, having the stadium jeer him and whistle him, making him walk into the players' tunnel by himself. Uh, that's not that's not how you treat a player. That's not how you fix something that is broken. So I understand they don't want to sell to us. I don't understand that they want to humiliate him and bully him into signing for a club where he may not want to go. Um, this turned a lot uglier than it should have. I also think that Atleti could have easily gotten 150 million from us for Alvarez, who's a player who never scored more than 10 goals in La Liga during the 2 years that he was here. And with that
Yeah,
150
unbelievable.
million, they could have strengthened their squad so much. Now um, they have a broken project because their main guy does not buy into the project. They have all of this hanging over them. I'm sure Simeone is even more upset with the board than with the player
Hmm.
because this is not how Simeone wants to start the season. You know Simeone, he wants his players to be there for 110%, not 101%. He demands 110%. He wants to squeeze the last bit of blood out of his footballers. That's not going to happen with a player who does not want to be there, who feels that he's been lied to, who feels that he's being bullied, who feels that he's being belittled. So at this point, I don't know what's going to happen. I kind of have the feeling that he's not going to he's not going to move because I think that Alvarez, even though he seems like a very very decent guy, But I think he's going to refuse to go to Arsenal in the summer, just because of how he's been treated. I also think Atleti is going to refuse to sell him to us.
Hmm.
And then I think in January, we'll see. I mean, maybe in January he'll go to Arsenal or something. Because I don't think
Yeah,
Atleti is going to sell to us for some reason. They they blame us for everything. Barcelona this. They always count on their journalists to do the work for them. I mean, it's not as if Alvarez wants to play for Mundo Deportivo. you know, this is just absurd.
yeah,
Transfer stories get leaked sometimes. I don't think it was in Barcelona's interest to leak that story at all. It's in Barcelona's interest right now to leak to the press that we're going all in, and if not Alvarez, we're not signing anybody, um, because this is the last week, and we don't want Alvarez to go to Arsenal. But it was not in our interest to leak this to the press 6 months ago or the start of the summer.
yeah.
Nothing like that. And if anything, Deco has been super secretive about his business,
He has.
and stories broke. Like Gordon was almost signed before some of us knew who he was. Adeyemi,
Yeah,
the story broke a couple of days before we signed him, and when it broke, it was already like, yeah, it broke because everybody agrees and he's coming.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's ugly, but in the words of Ernesto Valverde, es lo que hay. It is what it is.
yeah. It's funny because in sports, I would say with transfers and the EPL kind of breaking the financial model, um, it is funny that we have such short, not to say attention spans, but we have such short memories when it comes to Atletico Madrid. Not only did they spend more than Barcelona the last 3 years, but they got Antoine Griezmann from Barcelona back for a discount. They got David Villa for a discount. They got Luis Suarez for a discount. And as you said, like there are different periods of time. Like I'll take you back to the early '90s when Barcelona, to help build their dream team under Cruyff, they ransacked Real Sociedad. What was it? Three players came from Real Sociedad, right? It was Chichi, it was Beccaro, and I'm forgetting the other one. But anyway, yeah, they ransacked Real Sociedad, and Real Sociedad was like, what the heck? Like they remember they had just come off in the late '70s and '80s, like a pretty good
Yeah,
period for them,
the
you
Flying
know.
Dutchman swooped in.
Exactly. So it's like this does happen. This the ebbs and flows of different stuff, and I think in Spain it is this weird feeling that because of the money of the EPL and even Saudi Arabia, it's like, well, if we're going to get pillaged, if our league is going to get pillaged by somebody else, we don't want it to be one of our competitors in Spain. We want it to be, you know what I mean? Like it's just like they're standing in the middle of the street saying, "Okay, come steal, come pickpocket La Liga," but we want to make, but don't let it be one of the people we know. We want it to be somebody from the EPL or something.
I do understand that you don't want to sell to your direct competitor. You don't want to lose Alvarez to Barcelona, but
Of course.
selling Alvarez for even 120 million, like with that money, it's a win-win
Yeah.
situation. Atleti would be stronger,
Correct.
and we
Faith
sent
in the league. Yeah.
we sent Araujo to Liverpool. Now, if you can tell me one player that could be the cornerstone of a Diego Simeone project, it would be Ronald Araujo. You know
Yeah.
that there were deals to be made that could have made both of us stronger, but for some reason they have such an inferiority complex that they've just taken this insane stance. To me, it's an insane stance. And you named all of the deals that we made in the last 10 years, and I don't think that because of that they owe us any favors. But
Of
every
course.
time they made a
But
deal with us, maybe except for Memphis, and they were able to move Memphis on fairly easily. Every time they made a deal
mhm.
with us, in or out, it worked out for them.
Yeah.
We signed Arda when the guy was finished. We signed Griezmann, and sure, that sucked for them, but we signed him for 125. Then they signed him for 50, only paid 25 because they just played him for 45 minutes for like 6 months. or whatever, which I thought was
Hmm.
hilarious, and it was their right, and it worked out well for them. Uh, Luis Suarez and David Villa. I mean, it's not as if they like we wanted rid of these players. Let's be clear as well. It's not as if we did them a favor, but they got them for a very low price. So why would Atleti ruin this relationship that they have with one of the biggest clubs in the world, where
Yeah.
there are constantly deals in and out that work out for them? Over Alvarez, who I think is an amazing footballer, but you can't tell me that they cannot replace Alvarez. Like I said,
Yeah.
first season 8 goals, the second season 9 goals in La Liga. So
Yeah.
it's just
it is. It's absurd that they weren't
it's
willing to
it,
just
it, it, it
for
it's absurd.
120 mil.
They just shot
Yeah.
themselves in the foot, and every day they look at their foot and like, yeah, no, I need to shoot myself in the foot some more. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know
You'd
how
think
they're
that
gonna walk
120
without
mil
feet.
would be. Uh-huh. And yeah, you think that 120 mil would be enough to find 9 goals out there in the transfer window, right? In the
I know,
transfer
and
market, I
they
should
could
say.
have got they
Well,
could have milked us for 150.
yeah. Well, maybe. I don't know. I heard. I mean, what we saw was that 120 was kind of the limit, and Barcelona. I think they should. There should be a line. Like again, let the player know that you want to come for him, but like you need to have a limit, and 120 should have been the limit. And again, there were some positive reports leaked that maybe that was the hard line for Barcelona. And again, in negotiations, set a hard line. Okay, so speaking of deals, we just have a few more things around the edges here before we head out. Mark Cosado, Jorge Mendes is also his agent. And so one of the reasons why also that this Jorge Mendes stuff like does not move quickly is that he has a lot of clients in his agency. And yes, of course, Jorge Mendes himself is not fielding every phone call. And he has like a bunch of help with him, but he does kind of get final say and he is kind of necessary for those final meetings and all that stuff. So I can tell you that I bet his camp and his not camp, but his firm and his agency has been working on the Costado stuff for a while. And the impasse there is that Saudi Arabia, we've seen some big offers for Costado, but Costado, the player, as is his right, does not want to go to Saudi Arabia, which being a player in his early 20s shouldn't have to, right? If he's worth something. So Sunderland is reportedly leading the race to sign him, but Nottingham Forest, Aston Villa, Newcastle United, Brighton, we've also seen reports to all of those. Whether or not those are real, that's fine. But that what I like about it is that seems to be the level, and then the number between 30 and 40 for his sale to those teams that actually that makes tons of sense too. Like a 30 with 5 mil in add-ons, or even 25 with 5 mil of add-ons to Sunderland. That makes sense in all ways to me.
It
Brighton,
makes
same thing.
sense
That
to
makes
us. I
sense in
don't
every
know if it
way.
makes sense
Nottingham
to
Forest.
Sunderland.
The number you mean?
Yeah, I mean,
You don't think he's worth 30 plus or 25 plus 5 mil in add-ons when you see some of the other numbers that we've seen go?
yeah, but I mean, you can only judge a player on how he's been playing for the last year, let's say. He's a young player, and he's been
Yeah.
poor for over a season. And for his position, he's not strong, and he's not strong. Like in England,
Yeah.
there's a lot of set pieces, uh, and usually the holding mid and the central midfielders, unless they're brilliant, they need to help out with the set pieces. Um, he's not particularly fast either, and at Barcelona, he does not need to be strong or fast, and he hasn't played well. So I'd be surprised if one of them gives us 30 million for Casado, especially if we're also hearing 30 or 40 million for Alejandro Balde. Uh, it, it doesn't add
Yeah.
up. I think that they're much more likely to take him on loan, and his value will drop even further. It's a damn shame that La Liga has no money, because La Liga would be the perfect
Yeah.
place for Casado, the footballer, to develop further. Because his kind of football fits in La Liga. He could play at Betis or Elche or Real Sociedad or Villarreal. So I feel really bad for him. Also because he's one of the most passionate Barca fans on the squad. We
He
know
is.
this. He's the one who comes to Canaletas to celebrate the titles with the fans. So there's also that connection, and I also feel sorry for him that the club tried so hard to push him to Saudi Arabia. Um, I don't think fair has nothing to do with it. Um, but here's actually a guy who is probably heartbroken that he has to leave, but loves the club so much that he
Yeah.
says, "Okay, I I will leave. I'm not gonna fight it. I will look for another club. But then don't send him to a country where he does not want to live, to a league
Yeah.
where he doesn't want to play football. Like that just doesn't make sense to me. That's not how you treat people. That's not how you handle things. Like all of us, none of us think it's right if Atleti force Julian Alvarez out to Arsenal if he doesn't want to go to England.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Those are all
if
good points. Yeah.
Castro ends up in the Premier League, cool. I don't expect 30 million for him. Jorge Mendes is good. He's not a genius.
Yeah. Well, some of the ones I'm seeing here, like Shea Charles went from Southampton in the Championship for 30 mil, but then we see other ones where like Curtis Jones from Liverpool, he leaves for 30 mil to Inter. So it's like there's a variance, I think, in the player and the price, and I think it really just depends on the individual deal here. But yeah, you're right that 25 is much more likely than than 40. But yeah, even a loan option. We'll see how that goes. Hector Fort is another one linked heavily to Dortmund, and now we're just kind of waiting for that to be
Mm,
finalized. I mean,
that makes
it
sense.
might not be. Yeah, negotiations it just feels like negotiations are taking a few days, which is fine. Like I'm not so panicked about that. Like if negotiations is back and forth, it got leaked early. I think the players' camp said this is what we want, and the club is like kind of letting that happen. So I think that's
Yeah.
a good deal for him.
And the Bundesliga is a
Who's
good league for Spanish fullbacks.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, the best example is one of the guys who's no longer there. He's at Mallorca, actually, oddly in the second division. But Matteo Mori, who was a top prospect as a right back in the academy, going on 8 years ago now. But he had a bunch of injuries that kind of threw him off. He went from an A prospect at right back, that being Matteo Mori, down to like a B minus prospect, and so his levels kind of become Mallorca and all that. But when he left Barcelona, I think it was 17 after his first major injury, he was with Dortmund. He comes up at like 18, 19 years old because they saw him as a young prospect. And he worked out at Dortmund for a while as like a backup option. So for Hector Fort, like you look at it again, talking about the variance, like it's a good move for him. Frankie de Jong, this is nothing. He trained with the ball and jogged yesterday, still feeling pain in the knee, especially when change of direction. So he's still hurt, which is nothing new. It's the end of August. Like I thought we were told not to expect to see him for 5 or 6 months. So anything I see from De Jong is like, okay, we'll talk to you in November, December, stuff like that. But the fact that Man City would come for him, I don't want to waste our time to have a big conversation. Like it seems like they're forcing Nico Gonzalez out. He's going to be going to, as an old Barcelona player, Nico Gonzalez is going to be going to
Hmm.
Newcastle. They also Rangers went to Saudi Arabia, so like there's some movement there in their midfield. Yes, they brought in Anderson and they brought in Robbie. So they did bring in new players, but obviously if Frankie Young is available for you and you're Man City and the deal could be done now, you want to do that. But also De Jong, as we know, he's a second captain, which is interesting because Rafinha is the first captain. But I think that makes more sense based on merit and the locker room than it does about something negative related to De Jong. Does that make sense? Like it's more of a compliment and a positive about Rafinha than it is about like stripping De Jong of the title of first captain. Like I think there's a reason why you didn't see anything like that because I
I
think
think it was
everything is
just
just like fair and
convenience
above board
because he
there.
was injured.
Yeah, that's true too.
Because they say they vote for the captains, but they always vote on seniority. Who's been at the club the longest? So this was
Yeah,
just
and they didn't do
convenient.
that this time, right?
I will say, and it's not gonna happen because I don't think Frankie's going to change his mind that fast. I think Frankie won't leave
No.
um, until it is clear that his role is really diminished. And I know he has a lot of haters, but that won't be clear until the manager really stops playing him because he's such a good footballer. Um, However,
I mean, I'll ask you this. I think that, I mean, you look at, this is no disrespect to Gabi and Bernal in that first half, but the way that Flick had even responded about, like, we were losing too many balls. And I thought both Gabi and Bernal were fine, but even Gabi's latest update, it's just a bruise. He'll miss Athletic Club on Thursday, be available for Rayo next week. But where Bernal is in his career and still learning, still figuring things out. Also, he's had a major ACL injury. And then Gabi, who's also had a major ACL injury and still, we're trying to see what happens to how he kind of gets back to his best. There is very many worlds. Like, I'd say it's more likely that De Jong comes back, and if he's healthy, he's the third midfielder behind Pedri and Rodri, and he jumps ahead of Gabi and Bernal in the pecking order. I think that makes much more sense than
I
him being frozen out as the fifth on the depth chart.
I think so too. But at the same time, this is where sometimes the technical director has to put his foot down and say, "Hey,
True.
Hansi, I know Frankie is the better footballer. I know playing Frankie will get us better results. But if we play Frankie, we will lose Mark Bernal. And we're not going to play Frankie, who is 29 years old, who half our fan base does not appreciate anyway, for what? One or two more seasons while watching Mark Bernal walk out the door because he doesn't get any minutes? So here, as a club, you need to make the decision and say, no, wait, we have Rodri, we have Pedri, and then in front of them, yeah, we can play either Olmo or Fermi. But Mark Bernal needs minutes. And then you also have Gavi, who adds something completely different that nobody has, that fight and that character that he has. And who knows, Xavi Espart is playing midfield now. So for
Yeah.
me, the most logical option for Barcelona is to sell Frankie. And also, I think that Manchester City is the perfect team for Frankie de Jong because you have a team that knows how to play with midfielders in a league where everything goes so fast that there's always space, and Frankie can break lines like you break 20 lines per minute. It's like there won't be any lines. That's There won't be any lines left on the pitch
Yeah.
after the match because he don't broke them all.
Mm-hmm.
So I think City would be the perfect option for him, and they wouldn't even need to pay us that much. Like Frankie is worth a lot of money, but if they give us a bid of 25 million and we dump his salary, we'd
Correct.
be okay with that. We will take
100%.
that because it
100%.
it will create so much space for us to make moves either now or in January. I don't see it happening because one, he's injured. Two,
Yeah.
and who knows how long. Two, I think he needs to be shown that he doesn't get minutes, not just told. He needs to be convinced. And I'm also convinced that when that happens, he will leave because he's too good to not play, and he loves playing football too much to not play.
Mm-hmm.
And third, his girlfriend needs to agree. She loves Barcelona, or his wife. I think they're married now. I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, his kids have been born in Barcelona. Yeah. Yeah.
The kids don't get a say in
He's
this.
an adopted. Yeah, that's true. Children don't say. Yeah, I mean, the other thing too, I would, when we talk about these final days of the transfer stuff, like, I've been on record, I've said it a ton of times. Every time I watch Guille Fernandez, I'm like, if you give that kid time, by the time he's 21, I think he's going to be a huge, huge prospect. but there's just no time and space for him, and that's okay. Like in this midfield,
That's okay.
like Barcelona has the best midfield in the world right now. They do on paper. So it's like for him to make the club money, that's the way it goes. And but even then, like you're going the next generation down, right? So Ibrahim Tunkara is just 16 years old. He has an ankle injury, expected to miss around 5 weeks. But you can again, Guille Fernandez, Tony Fernandez. They've been in the fourth division. They've been at Barça Athletic. They've been there too long. So now it's time for them to take another step. And there's no room in the first team. So yeah, I mean, keep a buyback. Hopefully, it works out for them. And if they're good enough, they return. Sure. And then again,
I'd rather negotiate a sell-on fee than a buyback.
Sure. Yeah. Either way. And then you look at the players that are going to potentially get the 90 minutes to 180 minutes they're going to get this season, and you're going to give that to a 16-year-old Dinkara and a 17-year-old Uran Goran who played in those positions in the preseason, right? So it's like that's how the conveyor belt works. And again, as much as I really do, it says nothing about the talent of Guille Fernandez and Tony Fernandez. Like they are extremely talented players, but they were unable to break in under Flick when they had their shot with Barça Athletic the last year and a half, 2 years, right? When they were 16, 17, Flick at no point said, okay, even through the injuries of Bernal and Gabi, Flick never really, said, okay, they're ready here for this now. So that's it. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough part of the business, but I believe in those players. I believe in them elsewhere. And again, if they are good enough, then whether it's a sell-on fee, all those different things, then they would return because they had a desire to.
The big win is that they get to have careers as professional footballers, and
yeah,
most of the kids who pass through La Masia cannot say that. So
right.
All my respect for those kids who work hard and make the most of their talents and follow their dreams, even though they don't achieve the ultimate dream, they still achieve something that most of the kids that they've known and they've played next to don't get. And they're a rare bet also.
Yeah, yep. Well, speaking of talent, Levon, I'm always appreciative when you add your talent. We're going to get out with just under an hour, so we've done our due diligence. By the time, again, people are listening or seeing this, likely more things have changed, but the way that they've kind of stayed in the last days, hopefully not. Either way, Levon, always a pleasure. Remember, you can always follow him on social media. You probably noticed if you do check out his Twitter that I did get to play dumb here. I did get to throw him some softballs because I saw his tweets earlier, so I knew his opinion was. So I was able to play dumb, throw him some softballs. But yeah, there are no softballs over there for him. He's a great follow and a great guy. So Levon, thanks so much. And for everybody else, I will see you on Thursday for the 5 Headlines Athletic Club. We're not doing watch-alongs just yet. Big Up is still on hiatus, but we'll be back in short order there for the watch-alongs in a few weeks' time. And until then, yeah, it's just the 5 Headlines over on YouTube and on the podcast apps. I also had recorded and will be releasing in the next week a Patreon-only exclusive video. So if you want to help me make these shows and get a little reward in return, you can help me out on Patreon for as low as $3. You get free content over there. So, yeah, until I talk to you next time, Forza Barça.
All right, man. Yeah, take care. I just want to give a quick shout out to Peña Amsterdam, who invited me to watch a match, watch the Athletic Bilbao match this Thursday. So looking forward to meet some people while I'm here. And thank you as always for having me, Dan. Always good to talk to you, brother. Visca el Barça y Visca Catalunya. Adeu.
Yeah, I know. That's a final reminder here that what I say, since I'm not doing the watch-alongs right now, you don't have to be watching me during the matches. So in this interim time, get to know your Peñas. Go to your local Peñas. On BarcaBlog.com at the website, I do have a page that says where to find my Peña. And so I do have, especially in North America, for many of those listening to this, but yeah, it's a special helpful thing that tells you where your nearest official Peña is. And even then, just find some friends, watch some Barcelona, and that's how Peñas are created. So, all right, there you go. There's your Peñas. There's Levon. And he said it many times, Forza Barça, Visca Catalunya, and Visca el Barça. Let's go.